Hello everyone, this is our Golu at home, Golu 2024. It's a very small Golu this year as opposed to the previous years, but I would like to take you through this display of dolls. So on the right you have the traditional display on the steps, and on the left I have made a separate display on the stories of the 12 Alvars. And the step display is rather normal in the sense that you have the usual Bombais dolls. So you have Perumal there with some of his Nityasuris. The second step contains the Dashavataram, 10 avatars, and Ramlalla in the middle. And then the third contains Ashtalakshmi, and then the fourth Swami Deshikan and Venkatesha, and then all sorts of dolls, random dolls from different times. There are plenty that we could not display. This is just a small collection, some of the dolls that are close to our heart. These ones, for example, I think they belong to my father's mother, so my grandmother. And I was thinking how absolutely cute these look, although time has removed the paint and some of them have been damaged as well. So this is the display on the steps. So I think now I can take you and see the display of the life stories of the Alvars. So yes, please come this way. You have the Alvar life story here. I have tried to take one incident, one trait of each Alvar and try to display that here. Let's begin with this Alvar. These three Alvars, the Mudal Alvars, you know their story. It was raining one day in Tirukkovalur, so they tried to stay under a dehali to protect them from the rains. And there was barely enough space, and then suddenly they felt that there was somebody else. It was raining, it was dark, and the three of them started making pasurams, the Mudal, Irandam and Mundram Tiruvandadi, and that way they lit up a light. And then who did they see? It was Bhagavan himself, who was taking up space with them because he could not stay in the temple when there is such a good satsangam, Bhagavata satsangam. And then the second part is, this is Thirumangai Alvar. I don't know how well you can see him. And this is the story of Thirumangai Alvar and Kani Kannan. So in order to obey Thirumangai Alvar, who wanted Narayana in that temple in Thiruvirka, to go along with him because his disciple Kani Kannan was banished by the local king. So Narayana from the temple agreed to go with him, and then later when the problem was solved, Thirumangai Alvar said, okay fine, it's all settled, come on, let's go back. So Perumal said, fine, I'll go with you, and then he comes back and lies down in the same place but in a reverse reclining posture in order to mark the special event. So this is Thirumangai Alvar. So this is the fourth Alvar. It's not necessarily chronologically arranged, but I've tried to follow a certain logic behind this. We have moved to the Malaynadu, the mountain land, of which Kulashekara Alvar is said to have been the king. So he wanted to go to Srirangam every day. You will see later on that he faces Srirangam the way I have displayed Srirangam in that way. So Rangayatra Dine is what he wanted, but the ministers didn't want to let him go, so they would send Vaishnavas every day so that he can be busy serving them. And he got so involved with the Vaishnavas that finally the ministers decided to get rid of the Vaishnavas. So they one day accused them of stealing a necklace that they themselves had put away. Kulashekara Alvar then puts his hand inside a pot full of snakes and swears that Shri Vaishnavas cannot possibly have done such a thing. If they did, then may the snakes bite him. And of course the snakes don't bite him, and the ministers are very sorry for what they did. Now moved on to the story of Peria Alvar, who was a priest who had a garden, as we shall see in a minute, and he made flower garlands for the local deity in Srivilliputtur. And the local Pandyan king, wanted to know who the supreme being was, and Narayana appears in Peria Alvar's dream and tells him to go and establish him as the supreme being, which Peria Alvar does very nicely. So the king gives him all the gold coins that he promised, but also places him on an elephant and takes him round in a procession around the city. And to see that, Narayana himself turns up on Garuda, and Peria Alvar is so worried for his well-being because so many people are watching him that he picks up the two bells that the elephant is wearing and then starts singing Pallanda Pallanda, the quintessential verse of blessing for Narayana. With Peria Alvar, but we see that he had this grove where he had flowers that he made garlands with, and one fine day under the tulasi bush he finds a little girl, Kodai. He names her and then teaches her about Krishna, and she falls in love with Krishna and decides to marry him, and she does. So she marries Ranganatha, another form of Narayana, of course. So Andal, and Andal, near this pond with her friends, whom she asks to come and join her and for participating in the Pave Nonbe to attain Krishna. And of course she got married to Ranganatha, went inside the shrine and then disappeared inside. We are already in Srirangam, that is in the middle of the Kaveri river on an island, and this is the story of Thiruppan Alvar, who was very devoted to Ranganatha. He always stayed on the other side of the island, and from Urayur, he would used to come from Urayur and then worship Perumal. Because he thought he was of a lower caste, he cannot enter the temple. So there are many different variants of the same story, but whichever way, Perumal decides one day to have him inside the temple. So he has a priest, Lokasaranga Mahamuni, and asks him to bring him in. According to one version, because Lokasaranga Mahamuni, threw a stone at Thiruppan Alvar who was in the way. According to other versions, not really. Whichever way, Thiruppan Alvar says that he cannot possibly enter the temple because of his birth. And then Lokasaranga Mahamuni then wants to obey the Lord, so he carries him on his shoulders and takes him inside the shrine of Srirangam, and Thiruppan Alvar goes to Sri Ranganatha's feet and disappears there. So that is the story of Thiruppan Alvar. It's not really a story, it's more about just Tondaradippodi Alvar, who also had a Nandavanam, a grove, where he had plants and he made flower garlands for Ranganatha. He only sang about Ranganatha, no other deity from no other place, meaning no other temple. He was tempted at some point by a lady, and then Ranganatha himself saved him. So that is Tondaradippodi Alvar for you. Come to the story of Thirumangai Alvar. It's the night in a forest path. Thirumangai Alvar comes as a bandit to take the money, the gold, the jewelry of this newly married couple, who actually happened to be Narayana and his wife Sri Mahalakshmi, who had come to reform and take him under his fold. And anyway, to begin with, Thirumangai Alvar was indulging in this thievery in order to feed the Vaishnavas, but also to help build temples, etc. So, and then what happens is he takes all their jewelry, he ties them up, but he's unable to lift them. So he asks the bridegroom, "What's in there? What magic mantra did you use? Why am I unable to lift this?" So Narayana takes him close to his ears and said, "Let me tell you what that mantra is." And then he teaches him the Tirumantram, the Ashtakshari, and then Thirumangai Alvar recites the Peria Tirumuri. He composes the Peria Tirumuri at that point onwards. We come to Nammalvar, the most important of the Alvars, who from the birth didn't eat anything, didn't weave, didn't do anything, just stayed under a tamarind tree at the local temple in Alvar Tirunagari, Kuruhur, Kuruhai. It was Madhurakavi Alvar, who was on a pilgrimage in northern India, who was attracted by the light that was emitted by Nammalvar, who came and saw this little boy, a young 16-year-old boy who was meditating. So he took a pebble and threw it on him and then asked him a question. And the way Nammalvar replied, Madhurakavi Alvar decided that this was going to be his Acharya and served him. And he composed the Kannenun Chiruttambar, saying that the Acharyan is everything. And a few years later, all the compositions by all the Alvars were lost. And it was Nathamuni from Veeranarayanapuram who came in search of it to Alvar Tirunagari. He sat in meditation and recited the Kannenun Chiruttambar 11,000 times, and Nammalvar appeared to him and taught him not just his own Thiruvaimuri and his other works, but also the whole of the Nalayira Divya Prabandham. And then Nathamuni set it to tunes and then transmitted it. It was also thanks to him that the Arayar Seva also got started. So, so this is the story of Madhurakavi Alvar and Nammalvar. So this is our Golu this year. I hope you liked it, although it is very modest this year. Thanks so much for watching.